So, on this part, we're focusing on what polygamy or polygyny actually look like in scripture, since many believe it's the way of Yah. We have several examples of polygyny, and I'll say now, none were based on lust. If you look at Jacob in Genesis 29 through 30, his polygyny was pretty much centered on trickery and survival. Jacob did not choose polygyny. He loved one woman, and it was clear that he wanted to marry Rachel. He worked 7 years for one wife. He never asked for two. He was tricked into marrying Leah. It wasn't a choice, it was cultural pressure. Ended up causing competition and resentment in his household, where Rachel ended up jealous of Leah and eventually giving her husband her maid. So it was just a lot of emotional distress and jealousy in that family. This wasn't righteous polygyny, it was a family dysfunction caused by deception. You've got the story of Abraham in Genesis 16, where his polygyny was rooted in disbelief, had nothing to do with lust or desire to sleep with many women, and it was nothing holy about it. Abraham didn't wake up one day and say, let me add another wife. No, Sarah pushed him into taking Hagar because she doubted the promise. She felt barren and she felt she'd never bear a child. The text says Abraham listened to the voice of Sarah instead of the voice of Yah. And what happened? Another household of jealousy, oppression. Sarah immediately regretted giving Hagar to her husband. And Yah eventually told Abraham to do whatever Sarah said, which meant sending Hagar away. Again, this relationship was not formed out of lust or desire. It was human impatience and lack of faith. You've got David and his marriages that were pretty much tied to political treaties, strengthening tribes, unifying Israel, and solidifying alliances. You'll find that in 1 Samuel 18:27, 2 Samuel 3:2 through 5, and 2 Samuel 5:13. And pretty much in ancient Near East, the kings often married widows of previous rulers or prominent leaders to legitimize their rule. But notice, Yah never commanded David to do this. He actually rebuked David for taking on another man's wife, Bathsheba. So David polygyny wasn't about lust. Again, this was about unifying Israel in political treaties. But when he did get out of control and fell into sexual immorality, you better believe Yah did punish him severely. Then you've got Solomon, straight up disobedience. In 1 Kings 11, 1 through 4, Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines? And these were out of political treaties, foreign alliances, attempts to maintain peace with surrounding nations. And Yah explicitly told Israel, do not marry foreign women, for they will turn your hearts away. Solomon ignored this and proved Yah right. It destroyed him spiritually. Solomon is literally the example Yah gives for why polygyny leads to ruin. You've got Elkanah, Hannah's husband, who pretty much married out of cultural duty in 1 Samuel 1. He had Hannah, who was barren, and married Penina, I'm not sure how you pronounce her name, who was the fertile one. But this, again, wasn't about his desire to lay with her or anything lustful. In that culture, children were tied to survival, land inheritance, land continuation, family security. Hannah's barrenness meant Elkanah needed another wife to ensure the family line continued. But again, this was another household that was painful and in conflict. Hannah was tormented. Yah had to intervene because of the suffering. Again, this was another household that was not a blessed polygyny union, it was a sorrowful necessity. And then you have levirate marriage, which was marriage out of direct duty. Again, nothing to do with desire. If you look in Deuteronomy 25, 5 through 10, you'd find that a man would marry his deceased brother's widow only to protect her from poverty, keep the family line alive, and preserve inheritance within the tribe. This had nothing to do with desiring to lay with many women. In fact, if a man refused, scripture says she could publicly shame him. This was righteous responsibility, not lust. As I mentioned when I spoke about the verse in Isaiah that's being misused, they were asking men to step up and take them in righteous responsibility as their wives so that they would have the covering and protection of wives. The pattern is clear. Every biblical example of polygyny emerges from either cultural expectations, tribal survival, political alliances, barren wives who are seeking children, widow protection, levirate obligations, etc. Not one example is a man saying, I want more women because Yah said I can. Not one. So when men today say polygyny proves Yah wants men to have quote unquote options, ask them where is the example of a man taking multiple wives because Yah told him to. And also the example of where it turned out peaceful, holy, and blessed. We'll wait. Yah's actual standard has always been one wife. Genesis sets the foundation. A man shall cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. It doesn't say two, three, or four. And then when Paul talks about righteousness and leadership, he says, husband of one wife. 1 Corinthians 7:2, let each man have his own wife, and each woman have her own husband. Paul wasn't confused. He knew polygyny existed, yet he still says, one man, one wife, one woman, one husband. And then again, if we check the scriptures, they explain clearly how Yah feels about lust and sexual immorality. 1 Corinthians 6:18, flee sexual immorality. 1 Thessalonians 4:3 through 5, avoid lust like the Gentiles. We were instructed not to have our relationships similar to those of the Gentiles. Galatians 5:19, sexual immorality is a work of the flesh. Again, these scriptures aren't just for women. Not one excludes men. Are we really going to keep arguing that men can step out and do what they want without consequences? And if polygyny were the holy standard, why would Yah require monogamy for the leaders? Because Yah's standard is clear. The real issue is some men today are not trying to build households. They want harems. They want options. They want excuses to have them. They want their flesh fulfilled, but they expect women to live like nuns. That has nothing to do with Torah. It has nothing to do with leadership, and it's definitely not righteousness. Scriptural polygyny had nothing to do with lust. Men today are twisting scripture to justify what their flesh already wants. Yah is not the Elohim of deceit, secrecy, cheating, manipulation, or lust. Any doctrine that requires deception to function is not from Yah. He hates lying, he hates exploitation, and he honors covenant responsibility and righteousness. And the Bible never commanded men to take on multiple wives. If you want to follow scripture, you follow Yah's standard, not man's desire. Again, this topic has become the focus of many men in this awakening. While the enemy is still disenfranchising our people, finding new systemic roadblocks, and hanging your brothers from trees in 2025, Yah awakened you, and you are using the awakening to focus on fulfilling your desires. We have a responsibility as a people, and too many are taking it lightly. But I promise you, you will answer to Yah. Ladies, please stop allowing these males to exploit you and manipulate you with scriptures. And brothers, now you know better, so you must do better and hold one another accountable. We no longer have time for this. Take this as a warning, beloved. Shalom.